before severe weather hits. You need to be ready, know what to expect, and how to keep your family safe. This is a special presentation of KEZI 9 News, the Storm Tracker 9 Winter Forecast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this year's winter weather special. I'm meteorologist Ben Ames.
And I'm meteorologist Matt Gontarg. Chief Meteorologist Dylan Robichaud is still recovering with a voice disorder, and we do wish him a speedy recovery. Coming out of a record-hot, dry summer, we'll take a look at if this winter is going to be wet and cold or mild and dry like last winter. And what are the odds of a white Christmas here on the valley floor?
And is the city of Eugene ready for a possible ice storm? Find out what protocols they have in place and what causes snow, sleet, and freezing rain.
And skiers at Mount Hudu are in for a surprise this year. What the mountain is offering skiers coming up. But first, before we get into the winter forecast, we are coming off the heels of our hottest summer on record and one of our driest summers in state history. Let's take a look back at the last several months.
June 27th, 2021. The mercury at the Eugene airport hit 111 degrees.
111 here in Eugene so far today and 113 in Roseburg, Crestwell 108.
Making it the hottest day the city has ever seen in recorded history. That same day, Salem hit 117 degrees and Roseburg reached 114 degrees.
It was a highly unusual weather event associated with extremely high pressures, high geopotential heights aloft.
Fueled by an abnormally strong and persistent high-pressure system, the heat of summer 2021 would not let up. In total, Eugene had a record 42 days above 90 degrees, which tipped the city into being the hottest on record.
But this one, this summer was especially intense because of the large number of heat waves we got, and also because of the fact that at night, the temperatures didn't cool down as much as they usually do.
The state saw its worst drought in recorded history, too, with about 80% of the state seeing an extreme drought.
The last 20 years in the U.S. West as a whole, it has been one of the most drought-intense periods in the last 1,200 years.
Look at this graph showing drought years versus non-drought years. You'll see that the drought severity really started picking up around 2000.
Over the last 10 or 20 years, we've been receiving less rain than normal. And then because of the rising temperatures, there's more evaporation from the landscape.
More drought means more fires. More fires lead to more smoke and the ever-worsening air quality that comes with them. The Lane Regional Air Protection Agency tells us that, once again, this past summer was one of the worst smoke years on record.
But for the state of Oregon, even the state of county, or the countywide, air quality impacts from wildfires in the 2021 season would be easily in the top 5 worst years that we have seen in Oregon.
He says the city with the worst air quality, Oak Ridge.
For Oak Ridge, they had 13 days that were considered unhealthy and 1 day that was considered very unhealthy on the air quality index.
When we have smoky days like you see here, there are tiny suspended particles that you are inhaling, called particulate matter.
Particulate matter is essentially fine, small particles in the air, and when you breathe them in, they become entrapped in your lungs because they're so small, and they have trouble and difficulty escaping your lungs. A single day of exposure might not be that much PM that you're putting into your lungs, but 13 days of exposure for one summer, but you see that every summer over the course of a lifetime. Some of the long-term health consequences of breathing in that poor air quality from wildfires can be things that are really difficult problems to face later in life, such as lung cancer and other potential problems.
For most of the summer, we had a favorable wind direction to keep the smoke out of the valley.
Despite the heat and all of the drought that we saw this summer, the fire season wasn't as bad as projected. It was still worse than normal, with 800,000 acres burning across the state. According to the state fire marshal, statewide we had 1,949 fires, which is slightly below the 10-year average of 2,174 fires. Many of these fires burned in the open forest and luckily didn't threaten many homes and businesses. And Chad Mentor with the Coburg Fire Department says most fires are started by people, and this summer people were on their best behavior.
I think a lot of it has to do with, if you compare it to last year, it's just, it's a lot of non-wind events, non-east wind events. In 2020, we had the catastrophic lineup of east winds and, strong east winds, low humidities. But I think it's also people are very aware. You know, we didn't have as many calls for illegal burns and those kind of calls where fires could start. I think people are definitely more aware in Lane County.
The largest fire in Oregon was the Bootleg Fire, which burned more than 400,000 acres and destroyed 161 homes.
And one local winery says despite the record heat and drought, there was no damage to their wine grapes. Raymond Nuclew with King State Winery says the extreme heat happened early in the season. If the excessive heat occurred in August or September, we would have seen more damage to the crops. He says the other saving grace was the rainstorm near the end of the month of June, which really helped with irrigation.
Luckily, in early to mid-June, we had a system come through that we had anywhere from 1 inch to 2 inches of rain, depending on where you were in the Willamette Valley, and that was really a vintage saving.
So the record heat that we had, that's not necessarily a bad thing. It really depends on when we have the heat.
Correct.
He says when the June heat wave happened, they had plenty of soil moisture and the grapes were at a stage where they weren't prone to any damage.
Climatologists warn that the snowpack in the Cascades has been steadily declining over the last several decades. This is due to drier winters and warmer temperatures. This past winter, the snowpack started off very good. But beginning in March, we were very dry and, of course, had warm temps. Climatologists say the snowpack we get during the winter is vital to keeping our soil moisture higher during the summer. Declining snowpack leads to lower stream flow during July and August, which can exacerbate fire season.
Part of the warm temperatures, is a little bit warmer than average spring as well, and that causes snowpack to melt out a few weeks earlier than it normally does. Now, while a few weeks might not seem like a big deal, in the grand scheme of things, it does make a difference when you're talking about stream flows into the summer and reservoir conditions. So when we need the water the most, it's already run through the system.
Last year, the northern Cascades did very well with snowpack, while the southern Oregon Cascades were well below normal. So now that we've recapped the summer, what can we expect this winter? We spoke to an expert to see how much snow we can expect in the Cascades and whether the valleys will put a dent in the drought.
More likely that we're going to be cooler and wetter.
That's the official winter forecast from the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration's office for December through February.
The main driver for that outlook of wetter and cooler conditions is the ongoing La Nina episode.
I'll explain more on what La Nina is coming up a bit later, but essentially that means we're expecting to make great progress on our drought this winter.
We should be in an active weather pattern and seeing frequent and at times heavy precipitation.
That means more atmospheric river events, which is when the jet stream carries in a tropical plume of moisture from near Hawaii. We had an atmospheric river 2 weeks ago that brought serious flooding to parts of Washington state and British Columbia.
There's more confidence in the cooler temperatures than there is in the higher precipitation.
Most of the interior valley averaged between 15 to 20 inches of rain for December, January, and February, with average high temperatures between 45 and 50 degrees. That means this winter temperatures will be colder than that. Cooler temperatures mean a lower snow level and possibly a higher likelihood for snow in the foothills.
The average snow we get in the valley is around 4 inches a season, but keep in mind that's an average. Some years we'll get several inches, and then we'll go many years without a flake. Next, after the break, are we ready for an ice storm in the valley? We speak to the Department of Public Works to see what plans they have in place. Stick around.
Whether you're at home or on the go,
KEZI 9 News is always on.
With the KEZI 9 News to Go and Storm Tracker 9 weather apps on your smartphone or tablet.
Welcome back to the Storm Tracker 9 Winter Forecast.
When you think of winter, you probably think of snow. But let's face it, we don't see flakes very often here in the Willamette Valley. In fact, it's been almost 3 years since measurable snow fell here in Eugene. So if we've barely seen any snow in the past few years, we shouldn't worry about winter weather too much, right? Not so fast.
Let's rewind to February 2021. Antonio Lopez Amaro is on his way from work, driving over the Glenn Jackson Bridge in Portland. A wintry mix has been falling over northwest Oregon all day, but as the evening commute gets underway, snow has transitioned over to a light drizzle. What commuters like Lopez Amaro don't know is that the harmless raindrops are creating a silent killer, black ice. The invisible ice collects all afternoon on the bridge, and as Lopez Amaro drives over, he loses control of his car and flies over a snowbank 150 feet down into the Columbia River, killing him. This tragic story is just one of the many reminders of the danger of black ice. And while last February's ice storm just missed us to the north, the geography of the Willamette Valley creates an ideal environment for ice to form.
Let's go ahead and break down why it is so likely to see an ice storm here in the Willamette Valley as opposed to anywhere else. If you take a look at the geography here, we're in between two mountain ranges. And sometimes what happens is a temperature inversion. Cold air trapped on the valley floor above a layer of warm air, and then another layer of cold air above that. Now, this causes some issues. Let's say we see some precipitation move through. There's a cloud, there's some snow falling. What's going to happen here is that snow will fall, it will hit that layer of warm air, it will melt into rain, and then that rain will hit the ground, the valley floor, and freeze on contact. And that is what we call freezing rain. Although it looks like regular rain, because it's below freezing on the surface, you're going to start to see some ice accumulate. And that is a very dangerous situation, especially when driving on roads here in the Willamette Valley.
So now that we've established the risk for an ice storm in the valley, the question becomes, how can drivers prepare? And are local transportation agencies prepared for a large-scale ice storm?
Yeah, we've got a whole toolkit of extra resources if we need to use those.
Eric Johnson works with Eugene Public Works, and we talked with him about how they plan to tackle an ice storm and its impact on transportation in the valley.
We can do a lot of things to prevent slipping. So we do anti-icing, which is a proactive way of treating the street.
If we can prevent black ice from forming on roadways in the valley, we can prevent crashes and keep drivers safe. Overall, though, the safest way to drive during an ice storm is to not drive at all. But drivers who may not be aware that freezing rain is falling still need to be kept safe. And Johnson maintains that Eugene Public Works and other transportation agencies will be closely monitoring the weather all winter long.
We're always looking at it and trying to be proactive and trying to keep transportation moving here in the city.
Remember to stay with us as we track potential ice storms in the valley. And, of course, stay safe this winter. For KZI 9 News, I'm Storm Tracker 9 meteorologist Ben Ames.
Don't underestimate the power of ice. Just a quarter inch of ice accretion is enough to bring down trees and power lines.
Every single year during the winter and fall months, we want to know if it's going to be a La Nina or an El Nino type of year. Now, that all starts down towards the equatorial Pacific, and it depends on how strong those trade winds are, which blow off the coast of South America from east to west. Now, during an El Nino type of year, you get above average sea surface temperatures down towards the equatorial Pacific. But for this specific winter, 2021 and 2022, we're actually seeing a La Nina type of year, which means those stronger trade winds actually cause some upwelling of water, which brings colder sea surface temperatures. Now, what does that do specifically for us here in the Pacific Northwest? Now, during the fall and winter months, that La Nina type of year will bring us more precipitation and some colder temperatures in the Pacific Northwest, and those stronger trade winds once again bringing all of that upwelled water, a lot of cold temperatures near the surface there in the equatorial Pacific. And what does that do? Well, that drives up the Pacific high pressure that sits over the central Pacific Ocean. Now, there's two jet streams you want to talk about, the polar jet stream here in blue and also that subtropical jet stream that typically brings all of that moisture. Something we've seen over the past month is that atmospheric river. That's the exact jet stream that brings in a lot of that moisture. So during a La Nina type of year, which we're predicting for 2021 and 2022, that brings us a lot of more moisture. So we could see a wetter type of season heading for fall and winter. On top of that, we're also seeing some colder temperatures moving in from that polar jet stream that typically brings in some of that Arctic air right along the Pacific Northwest into the Cascades and the Rocky Mountain region. Now, with those two, it typically brings more rain, possibly more snow for the Cascades, and we're also seeing an above average precipitation type of year. Already off to a nice start for the month of November. It also favors some colder temperatures, and we're more likely to have some big winter storms ripping through in the Pacific Northwest, so we could hopefully get some more snow heading into the winter months. Now, taking a look at the climate outlook for an El Nino type of year, not what we're expecting. El Ninos typically bring average type precipitation, fewer major winter storms, and then warmer average temperatures. So on the other hand, an El Nino type of year, you will see warmer temperatures rather than colder temperatures that we'll be seeing for a La Nina type of year. And snow also typically stays into the mountain regions during an El Nino type of year, where we may actually see some snow into the valleys heading into a La Nina type of year. And if you're dreaming of a white Christmas, we'll tell you the odds after this happening for us this year. Coming up. Well, let's now get to the fun part. Have we ever seen snow on Christmas? And let's talk about the definition of what it means to have snow on Christmas, because you need at least 1 inch of snow on the ground on Christmas Day. Now, that doesn't happen often. You can see the big 5% on the screen. That's right, we've only seen it 5% of the time here in Eugene on Christmas Day. And again, you need at least 1 inch or more on the ground during Christmas morning. But the most snow we've ever seen on Christmas was 0.8 of an inch in 1983. And it's only snowed 4 times on Christmas here in Eugene. And again, it varies where you live, depending on if you're up in Corvallis, Roseburg, or even North Bend. And you could see Corvallis, you've actually had 6% of your Christmases with 1 inch or more of snow. Since records have started from 1981 to 2020, these are what we get the results. Really haven't seen much snow in Roseburg or North Bend. Only 0% chance of snow on Christmas. Hopefully this will be an outlier type of year. Again, we're in that La Nina type of season, so hopefully we can get some cold air to sink down to the valley. Give us a Christmas morning with snow on the ground. Chances, unfortunately, don't look too good for us. Let's hope Christmas brings us a gift this season.
Get your ski legs ready as the snow flies. Local ski resorts are getting ready to open. Mount Hudu Ski Resort is getting ready for a busy season. The mountain doesn't make any snow. It's 100% natural, which means they won't open until Mother Nature allows them to. Staff is hard at work making sure they are ready to open in December. The general manager says last year they were super busy due to the pandemic, but this year, with more things being open, they don't expect as huge of a crowd.
I'm expecting this year to be a little less busy than last year. Not by much, but probably 95% of the crowd, because a lot of the various activities that have been shut down last year are open again. So people will be finding other things to do, but still keeping their, ski legs active.
When we stopped by the mountain, there were about 2 inches of snow on the ground, and they need 30 inches of base before they can open. When we come back, we'll take you back to Mount Hudu, where this year they're offering skiers a new service that you can only get on this mountain. Stick around. Imagine how much more fun skiing and snowboarding would be if you could get equipment that is custom made for you. That's what the Sandy Am Snow Lab at the base of Mount Hudu is doing. You can build your own custom skis.
We teach people how to build custom skis and snowboards.
Hank Gulledge, the manager at Sandy Am Snow Lab, says in this small shack at the base of Mount Hudu, they are doing something unique that no other ski resorts are doing.
A lot of people come and ask us, hey, will you build me a custom snowboard, or will you build me a custom set of skis? And the answer is no. We don't build custom skis and snowboards, but we will teach you how to make one.
As long as you're willing to put in a full day's work, this is what you could be left with at the end of the day.
Oh, beautiful.
So where do you begin?
Just slide your hand over here.
Gulledge says the process starts with a few questions.
If you want to make a custom snowboard, for example, we would ask you a bunch of questions on your ability, your height, your weight, where you want to snowboard, what you want to do specifically with the snowboard.
These are built based off of your ski ability and locations for where you will be skiing.
We come up with a performance design for your snowboard. That's one of a kind. It's made just for you.
Then you show up here and they teach you how to build it.
Once we know the performance design and get it locked in, then we move over to an aesthetic design.
You can choose whatever design you want. Here are a few designs that other clients made. Plus, making your own has several advantages. Gulledge says your skis or snowboard will be more comfortable and better match your needs.
And I'll tell you that once you build your own skis or snowboard, you will never think the same about what's strapped to your feet when you're on the lift.
Now, if you want to design and build your own custom skis or snowboard, go to sandyamsnowlab.com to sign up for a 15-minute phone consultation. That does it for us for this year's winter weather special. We'd like to thank you for tuning in, and we'd like to thank Chief Meteorologist Dylan Robichaud, who worked diligently behind the scenes to gather all this content.
And over the coming days, we will upload all these stories on the KEZI.com. Thank you very much for joining us, and have a safe and enjoyable holiday season.